I think what you're going to find is that the writing, for me anyway, I really do believe content is king. The writing is the most important thing to the health of a channel. You could have a video shot on a webcam, and as long as the content is good and there's good storytelling. I mean, that's one of the things that I really go through with my guys, is that it's not about just writing down all the facts. It's about figuring out what the story is. And there's 100 products a year that launch that are like notable products from big brands that we won't cover, because when we sit down in our writers meeting every Monday morning, I kind of go, what's the title? What's the thumbnail? Which is another way of asking, what's the story? Why should people care about this? And if there's no answer, if there's no beginning, middle, and end, then we don't make a video about it. So I think if you were to look at particularly a category like monitors on our channel, it might seem very, very arbitrary what we cover and what we don't, but it's not at all. It comes down to, what's the story we're going to tell. So there's one coming soon that's not technically a monitor, strictly speaking, it's a TV. But the story we wanted to tell is why 65-inch TVs can be had for $500 now. So instead of it being really, really focused on the TV, it's actually only about 3 paragraphs of the script near the end that are about, why this TV is such a good value and why so many people are buying it, because it's the most purchased TV on Amazon. And then the entire rest of the script, which is probably about 65% of it, is about how TV fabrication works and how the larger the sheet of glass that they make and the generation of the fab dictates how large a sheet of glass they can cut multiple panels from, dictates what the economies are of building that TV and where we're expecting this to go in the future, and sort of that story. So that's the story. The TV is just, for me, the product has always been more of like a prop to tell the story. And there's definitely times, or there's definitely videos where we have leaned more heavily into the product. There's one example is I was absolutely desperate to get a video shot last week, and there's this pair of Odyssey, or sorry, I shouldn't say pair. There's an Odyssey gaming headset that's like $900 US. And I was like, well, this is just like, that's kind of a story in and of itself. What could possibly justify a $900 gaming headset? So I did a very product-focused video. But going back to even the very first video about the Sunbeam Tunic Tower, the story was, what are the benefits, and, how do you install a large air cooler compared to your stock cooler? Oh, it's going to make your computer quieter. Like, what's the real world benefit for the viewer? So coming back to your original question, I think that writing is by far the most important thing to the health of the channel, and it's therefore the thing that requires the most babysitting. So when it comes to Linus Tech Tips, which is our bread and butter, every script, whether it's a new writer or whether it's someone who's been working with me for 3 years now, and some of the people on my team have been with me for 3 years, and they are like, I would consider them bona fide YouTubers in their own right at this point. They sit down with me either together or over a Zoom call, that Rona. And we go through the script word by word. And I say, okay, this I'm changing just because it's not my voice. This, let's debate it because I don't really agree. Can you explain this? I feel like this paragraph should be here. So I actually had a kind of a snarky comment on our forum about how, I'm just a talking head and I just read the script. Obviously, Linus says he, edits the scripts, but there's no way. And, I was just like, I was kind of in like a bad mood. And so what I did was I uploaded screenshots of the original script that was submitted to me and the one that I edited. And I went, there you go. Yeah. Either I went and I rewrote the script, like making it slightly different and worse, just for the sake of replying to your comment, or I actually do take my job as like senior editor very seriously. And I actually do sit down and edit all the scripts that I have an editing credit on. So,
and why I think that's so important for, you say it's the backbone of a channel, and the way you guys do videos, it's in a way that you can come back to every single video and enjoy every video. Even if you're not interested in that one specific product, you make sure that it's just a backdrop of the video and someone can watch it, enjoy it, and, say, oh, I learned something today, or that was extremely entertaining. I'm not going to buy that TV, but hey, I'm leaving with something.
That was something we learned 4 or 5 years ago when we were still really focused on product unboxings. And I had always tried to work some general knowledge into a product unboxing. I had tended to try to focus on products that introduced something we hadn't seen before. Okay, so here's the first modular power supply that has individually sleeved cables. Let's talk about the benefits or drawbacks of those. But what we found was that having titles that were just kind of an individual product name and having a video that was just, yay or nay, should you buy this product, resulted in, really good viewership right out of the gate, but then this precipitous drop down to basically nothing. Whereas if we look at almost everything that we've produced over the last few years, my goal is that if a video is not getting 1,000 views a day, a year after we release it, then it's an utter failure. And we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we can do better. So it was through a combination of conversations with people at YouTube. That's happened more recently, I guess. So that's more just solidified the strategy, but also observations in the analytics that we determined that Evergreen was the best way for us to grow. We've been one of those, I think we're probably the quietest channel doing 100 million views a month, we don't get a ton of press unless I'm, talking about how I'm thinking of retiring or apologizing to Tim Sweeney or whatever. We don't tend to, but that's exactly it. We don't tend to have a lot of drama associated with us. So we don't get a lot of mainstream media coverage or anything like that.
I feel like the tech community as a whole is just this little bubble over here that people enjoy, but kind of you could have 10 million, 11 million subscribers now like you guys, but then, Linus, I think maybe I've watched one of his videos for, 11 million.
Yeah. So it's we joke about it internally. We're quietly doing a Super Bowl a month. I only mention the huge viewership quietly because one thing we've realized is that we never and probably will never experience the kind of explosive growth that someone like a Casey Neistat, for example, might experience. Or you see it over and over again in the gaming space, for example. Jacksepticeye is a perfect example of someone that I remember looking at back in the day when he was absolutely tiny. And then I looked at him again in 3 months. And he had millions upon millions of subscribers. I was like, what even is this? How do people do this? It is never going to happen for us. So what we realized was that we needed to have a different strategy. Instead of trying to make a gigantic splash, we needed to just build that enormous content library that consistently gets background views in the background, and continues to drive our overall viewership up, which is going to drive up our revenue, which is going to make it so we can hire more people, which is going to make it so that we can expand. Another thing that I've observed over the years, been doing this so long, dude, so long, is that it tends to be, and it's not always the case, but it tends to be the ones that rise exponentially also tend to fall faster. And I call it the curve. Everyone succumbs to the curve eventually, but I have found that the slow and steady ones do tend to have a slower and steadier decline when it does eventually happen. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping to fade into obscurity relatively slowly instead of just wake up one morning and be like, oh, no one wants my tech tips. Well, alrighty then. I guess I better start a garden in the backyard.
Well,